She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical oven.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today we have a very sad, disturbing, and chilling case. One that leaves us with many questions, but something that's clear from the details of this case, clear to me at least, is that 4-year-old Cash Gernon was let down by almost everyone around him. And as a result, he's no longer here today to live his life, to grow up, to make friends, to start a family of his own. He's gone. And I believe that there were multiple things that could have been done to avoid this horrible tragedy. But before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Magellan TV. And I have the best recommendation for you today. It's a series on Magellan TV called Lady Killers, and the 10 included episodes go over cases where a woman is the killer. The description says rage, jealousy, and passion. These are the marks of a murder committed by someone pushed to the very edge. Criminologists agree that men and women kill for very different reasons and in different ways. So there's a lot of cases included in this series that I'd personally never heard of before. So it was really exciting because I love finding new cases that I've never heard of. And there are stories about multiple women from all over the world who've taken a life and why they did it. Magellan TV is a new kind of documentary streaming service with over 3,000 documentary films and series, and they add more every single week. Magellan TV is also easy to use in your cell phone, tablet, computer, or smart TV, so there will never be a time or place that you can't treat yourself to educational and entertaining television that's worth watching. Whether you're interested in true crime, history, science, nature, or really anything else, you can use this really great streamlined app to browse through hundreds and hundreds of amazing, carefully curated films and series that will keep you on the edge of your seat and open you to new worlds, new ideas. Many of these are available in 4K with no extra charge, and they're all delivered to you ad-free. I love Magellan TV. They're great. There's probably at least 11 documentaries that I have in my queue that I want to watch, and then like I said, they add more every single week, so that number just grows every single week. There are tons of great true crime documentaries on here, but the history documentaries are my second favorite. They're amazing. So if you're into true crime, and I feel like history and true crime really go hand in hand, you will love their history documentaries. They're really, really good. There's documentaries for younger kids, so if you're getting sick of watching cartoons or whatever weird thing your kids pick out on Netflix that you've never heard of, like Bella's always finding the weirdest stuff on Netflix. I've never heard of these things, and she is obsessed with them, and I hate them. So if you're sick of that, put on one of these. Let your kids be entertained and kind of open their eyes to new things. Let them learn about hummingbirds. That's one that Aiden and Bella and I love, the hummingbird one. I'll put it in here so you can check it out if you're interested. And if you are interested in trying Magellan TV out for yourself, I have a special and exclusive offer for viewers of this channel. You can get 30% off an annual membership. This gives you an entire year of Magellan TV for less than $3.50 a month, less than a cup of coffee, depending on where you're buying coffee from, right? But pretty cheap for all the stuff you get. You really can't beat it. It's a great deal. So click on the link in the description box and start watching today. And this offer may change at any time, but it's a good one, so jump on it while you can. Thank you so much to Magellan TV for sponsoring this video, and let's dive right in. This case really sucks. It's been hard to research, especially as more details surface and kind of muddy the waters of this already tragic death. It took me a lot longer to do my research on this one than usual because I had to keep stepping away. So at around 6:45 on the morning of Saturday, May 15th, 39-year-old Antoinette Square was out for her morning power walk in the Dallas, Texas neighborhood of Mountain Creek when she saw something lying in the road. She thought that it was a dog at first, but as she got closer, she realized that it was a human child. and she's obviously traumatized by this. She began screaming. She said she knew right away that this little boy was dead because she saw ants crawling all over his little bare feet. Antoine Square says that she'd called her mother because she was scared. First of all, she could see as she was walking up that there was something in the road that had hair on it. And she was like, oh, we have a lot of stray dogs around here. So unfortunately, probably one of them got hit by a car. But then she was kind of walking closer and she saw a leg and then an arm and these little bare feet. And then she realized she was looking at the body of a very small child who had blood all over him.
Police tell us the little boy, a toddler, was found in the street along Saddle Ridge Drive. That's just north of Cedar Hill.
A shocking sight early Saturday morning.
I'm taking a walk. I'm coming from the back end of the street.
Antoine Square found something lying on the pavement on Saddle Ridge Drive in Duncanville.
But the closer I get to the image, I can tell it's a body because I see a hand and I see a foot. And then I noticed that it was a child.
She says the boy had no shoes or shirt and was lying in the middle of the street at 6:45 in the morning.
I've never seen him. I've never seen him in the neighborhood.
She called 911, but the boy had already died.
I don't know what could have happened. I'm a little traumatized, a little afraid. I don't know what happened to him. To see that, to see it, to walk up on it. So no, I don't feel safe at all.
In Duncanville.
And that's disturbing for me to carry all day.
So she hung up with her mother, she called 911, at which point she was asked to check for signs of life. Antoine Square said, quote, "They asked me to walk right up to the body in case the little boy was still alive. And if he was, for me to try to save his life. I saw ants crawling all over his bare feet, and he had blood on his face. He had no shoes, no socks, no shirt, none of that. He was only wearing a pair of bottoms, shorts. I just keep remembering those ants at the bottom of that baby's feet." End quote. So this woman, Antoine Square, she's pretty amazing, strong. I can't imagine what kind of mental turmoil she's now going through as a result of this, how long it will last. I believe she's a teacher, she's an educator. She's the mother of 2 daughters. Her youngest is 3, her oldest is 12, and she has a 17-year-old son. She said that there was no way she was going to leave this child in the road alone, and so she stayed with him until the police got there. She said there was an SUV pulling out of a driveway nearby, and she had to run out and stop it so that this little boy wouldn't get run over. She said, quote, "I was standing guard over him. I just wanted to help him, to do what I could to help him get peace that he needed, even though I knew that he was dead." End quote. The police arrived on the scene and confusion ensued because at that point, no one had called to report a child missing, and they didn't know who he belonged to. So police began walking around the neighborhood. They were knocking on doors and asking residents if they had small children in their household.
And all throughout the weekend, police have been canvassing the area looking for evidence and a motive.
They were back in the alley looking through the trash containers to see if they found any type of evidence. They went down the street here and they spent a good time down there.
And it would be several hours before a woman did call the police to report that her 4-year-old son was not in his bed when she woke up that morning. And only then was the small child lying alone in the street given a name, Cash Gernon. He'd been reported missing by 39-year-old Monica Sherrod, who lived on Florina Parkway, which was just about a half a mile away from where he was found. So this is a bit of a complicated mess. Monica was not Cash's biological mother, but she had been caring for Cash and his twin brother Carter since the previous March. Monica has 4 children of her own who also live in the house: 15-year-old Matthew, 14-year-old Landon, 18-year-old Cameron, and 16-year-old Emily. Now, before I dive into these convoluted family dynamics, I want to tell you what happened to Cash Gernon that morning because there was surveillance cameras in the 6-bedroom home that he lived in, and specifically in the bedroom that Cash shared with his twin brother, Carter. The video showed a man in the twins' bedroom at 4:58 in the morning. This man has since been identified as 18-year-old Darren Brown, who lived with his parents just about a half a mile away from where Cash's body was found. In this incredibly disturbing footage, we can see Brown enter the room. We can see him standing for a few minutes over the bed where the 2 4-year-olds were sleeping peacefully. He just sort of looks down at them for a while, just standing there. I thought that the video was frozen for a while because he just doesn't move. You can see that he's wearing a hoodie, jeans, sweatpants, and he has a backpack on. You can see him carefully pull back the blanket and look down at the bed for a few more seconds before quickly picking up Cash and leaving the room. And the way he holds Cash as he's leaving, it's haunting to me because it's not the normal way you pick up a sleeping child, bringing him close to you and cradling him to your chest. He picks Cash up and literally holds him at arm's length as if he was a smelly dog or something. And of course, your mind's racing, wondering, what's Cash thinking when all of this is happening? He's just been yanked from his warm bed, the safety of his brother sleeping next to him, and taken from that security by a stranger who can't even pretend to comfort him. But that's not all you see on the security camera footage. Darren Brown returned to that same house and that same bedroom about 2 hours later, around, I believe, 7:30 in the morning. And this is believed to have been an attempt to take Carter. At this point, when Darren Brown returned for Carter, Cash was already dead. But while he was there at about 7:30 in the morning, something spooked him, and you can see him run off very quickly. Not long after this, I believe it's just a couple of minutes, Carter wakes up, he gets out of bed, and he looks around for his brother. And when he can't find Cash, Carter utters his name, calling for him, Cash. It's just heartbreaking. And what we have to understand is Darren Brown returned to the house after he'd murdered Cash and left him in the street like a dog. He returned possibly to get Carter. We don't know what spooked him. It could have been maybe Carter was waking up because it was 7:30 in the morning. That's usually the time the kids woke up. We don't know what exactly spooked him, but he left. He didn't take Carter, thank God. It's believed that Darren Brown entered through the garage door, which was damaged and didn't lock properly. Monica Sherrod told the Daily Mail, quote, "He came in and broke the connecting door into the home. We are on the other side of the house. We didn't hear anything. We were all asleep," end quote. So it looks like Monica and her biological older children slept on one side of the house, and the other side of the house was where Cash and Carter slept. So it's kind of spread out, I guess, according to her, so they didn't hear anything. Monica said that morning she woke up late, and she thought it was weird because the boys usually had her up much earlier. She figured that Cash was still in bed, but then Carter told her that Cash had gone outside, at which point she and her children began searching frantically for him, yelling his name throughout the neighborhood. But he wasn't answering, so she knew something was wrong, and she called 911 just before 11 a.m.
I woke up a little late because, like I said, Cash didn't wake me up. Cash is normally the one that wakes me up. In the morning, we get up about 7. We eat the breakfast, and then we get ready for school. That's what they called it. And we'd sit at the table and do our ABCs and our shapes and our colors, and then I'd let them go play, and then we'd do lunch and then naps. The day
what
that
happened on this day?
The day that he was missing, I got up late and I thought it was weird. It was kind of like, it's 10 o'clock, you guys, already. You waited late to wake Mommy up, so I figured Cash was still in bed. My son is who walked in the room and said, "Where's Cash at, Carter?" Because they're never separate. They don't separate. And Carter goes, "He went outside. He went out front." So we believed Carter, you know what I'm saying? And so my boys started looking for him, and I started screaming, "Cash, if you're hiding from Mommy, it's not funny anymore. Come out, it's time for breakfast." He wouldn't answer, so I called 911.
Around the house?
Yes, they went all the way around the block. My boys did. They went all the way up this alleyway. They walked all the way down to the little corner, you know, yelling for Cash. And he wasn't answering, and I knew something was wrong. Something in my mind I knew. So I called 911 and told them I couldn't find Cash. And they said, "When did I notice he was gone?" I said, "Immediately when I got up, when Carter woke me up. We noticed Cash was gone, and I didn't even think about their surveillance system."
So this is several hours after Cash has already been found. Several hours. At this point, there were already reports coming in about a small boy being found in the street not far from where they lived, but Monica said she refused to believe it was Cash, even though her daughter told her that it had to be. Monica then viewed the security camera footage with a detective from the police department. There had been talk about why Monica didn't immediately tell the police about the cameras in the home, valid questions. She claims that she'd forgotten about them completely until her son Matthew, who was the last to be interviewed, brought it up. Monica said, quote, "When you're going through something like that, all you think about is your baby that's missing. And when they said, 'My mom has cameras,' I rewinded the cameras, and there he was, the boy, taking my son out of his bed." End quote.
My son, I was crying and I was confused and like in a million pieces and praying to God they would still find Cash, and that little boy wasn't Cash. I kept telling my daughter, "That's not Cash." And she said, "Mommy, it has to be. Nobody else is missing a baby." My son had went into his interview. Matthew was the last to be interviewed. He remembered all of a sudden, "Mom has cameras." And I when you're going through something like that, you don't think about all of that. All you think about is your baby that's missing. And when they said, "Mom has cameras," I rewinded the cameras, and there he was, the boy taking my son out of his bed.
How did you feel when you saw that?
I freaked out. I'm sure my kids heard me.
The Dallas medical examiner revealed that Cash had died from multiple stab wounds and that he'd been stabbed with an edged weapon. But in Facebook posts from May 16th and May 17th, Monica Sherrod's father, Kurt Pinkerton, wrote that Cash had been abducted, raped, and stabbed. Kurt also said that a friend had been with Darren Brown and he'd recorded the whole thing on a cell phone. As of now, law enforcement has not confirmed either of these statements or allegations. They could be true. They could be not. Many people think they are true because sometimes the family will have inside information that hasn't been released to the public yet. We don't know. Darren Brown was arrested, but initially he was only charged with kidnapping and burglary. According to a press release from the Dallas PD, more charges will likely be added once the forensics are processed. Brown is being held in the Dallas County Jail, and I believe he has a $750,000 bond, which I don't get. I just don't get it. I was watching another true crime channel called Stop the Madness Crime News. You guys should check him out. I enjoy his voice and the compassion that he clearly feels for the people he's talking about. I enjoy his delivery. But I was watching him, and when he got to the bond part of the story, he also stopped, and he asked the same thing. He asked the same question that was on my mind. Why does Darren Brown have a bond at all? Now, I understand if we're waiting for the forensics to actually make sure that this is the way things went down, but this is a case where we have video footage of the suspect taking a child from their bed, and 2 hours later, that child is found brutally murdered, left in the street like roadkill. There should really have been no bond, because we should also never assume someone can't afford it. I think sometimes law enforcement does that where they're like, "Oh, we'll put a bond really high, so, you can't really get the bond because we don't think you can afford it." But the last thing that the people of Dallas need right now is for someone who's potentially dangerous like Darren Brown to be wandering through the streets. And that's not simply because of what he did to Cash and what he clearly, in my opinion, was about to do to Cash's twin brother, Carter. But Darren Brown does have a history of scaring people, of creeping people the hell out, and we will get to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about Cash's family, and that includes those who were not related to him by blood, just because I don't know what to call everyone who was in his life. I need to explain to you how Cash and Carter ended up living with a woman who was not their mother, and explain to you a little bit about who these people are and some of the things they've said and done. Because like I already stated, a lot of this does not add up. A lot of it doesn't make sense. And I can't really look at anyone in this case and say, this person is a good person, or this person's a good person. It really feels like there's nothing but villains in this story. First, let's talk about Cash's biological father, 31-year-old Trevor Gernon. What you need to know is that after little Cash was murdered, no one heard from this man for a week. Before that, no one even knew where the hell he was. It was just recently that he made a public statement using his sister's YouTube account, and he's still not revealed his location. I'm going to play his statement for you in a minute. So what we have here is a really messy he said, she said situation. That is, once again, as is the case with so many of these tragedies involving children, taking the attention away from the child in question. So, it seems as if Cash and Carter's biological mother is a woman named Melinda Seagroves, and she claims that she has not known where her two sons were for quite a while, and she and her mother and her sister have been searching for them. Now, Trevor, Cash's father, and Monica Sherrod had apparently known each other for a few years when they'd both lived in Houston. I believe Houston was both their hometowns. That is where Cash's biological mother lives. And at some point, they both moved to Dallas separately. And Trevor claims that they were both single parents, so he would sometimes ask her for advice about local things, which I assume means like things to do with kids in the area. Monica Sherrod says that Trevor and his sons moved into her home in Dallas on February 14th of 2021. But then at the beginning of March, Trevor bounced. In his video statement, he will tell you that he decided to move back to Houston after an unsuccessful job search. And at that point, he decided to leave his children, his two 4-year-old twins, with Monica because with her, they had a home, stability, routine, and other kids around to play with. That's not exactly the way Monica remembers it, however. She told the Daily Mail, quote, "He is a coward. His son passed away, and he's letting us deal with all of this as if it's our fault. I don't know where Trevor is. I've tried reaching out, but I'm getting no response. He left because he had a warrant. He got busted with pills that he said weren't his before we got together. He was supposed to turn himself in to go to rehab, and he was scared because they told him he had to go to jail until a bed opens up, and that's all he could hear, jail. And I told him it's okay, but he got spooked and left." End quote.
Hello, my name is Trevor Gernon. I'm the father of Cash Gernon and Carter Gernon. I understand that all of you have questions, and I would like to take a moment to address the public. First, let me say that I do not wish this nightmare on any parent. You have no idea how hard it has been for all of us, or how hard it is to hold it together while everyone picks your family apart, family turning on another. All attention and time should be reserved for Cash. I want to thank you all for being so compassionate and motivated for justice. It is comforting to know that so many of you feel this loss too. So I will start by clarifying my absence. I knew Monica for a good few years before moving to the Dallas area. She was a single parent like me, so naturally I would ask her advice on local things. At the end of February, beginning of March, Monica offered her home and help, which I was thankful for. Being a single dad with twin 4-year-olds can be overwhelming from time to time. When I decided to move back to Houston after an unsuccessful job hunt, amongst other things, I felt it was in the boys' best interest to not disrupt their routine. They were comfortable. They were around other kids, and from what it appeared, Monica was a trustworthy person. This choice I made with best of intentions has resulted in the most horrific outcome. I have paid the most ultimate and painful of price for my poor judgment, and I have to live with this devastation every single day. I will never forgive myself. If I could, I'd go back and do everything different. This is a nightmare that doesn't go away once I open my eyes in the morning. Sorry. We just don't understand how this can happen to such a bright and cheerful kid. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I understand how Mindy and Connie could be upset and want to do and say things to me because he was in my care. If it had happened in her care, I'd unfortunately feel she held responsibly too. When you have to process and comprehend such violent tragedy, our group blames others. It blames ourselves. And Mindy, I am so sorry that I failed to keep him safe. That is my job as a dad, and I was not able to do that. And I'm sorry. To make matters worse, I have to fear for my freedom, as it is the goal of some to see me go to jail rather than grieve the loss of my little boy. All I want to do is have that one thing every parent deserves: to say goodbye and be with my son one last time before I return him home. I wish I could give you all of the answers, but I don't have all of them. I'm barely getting through a day that doesn't take me to a dark place. I miss my son. I miss my kids. I hope you all can understand how fragile we all are, and how quickly things can turn upside down. It makes you wish you spent more time. I'm sure that throughout this situation, there will be a lot of less than favorable things said and speculations towards everyone involved. I would hope that we can all cooperate and band together to make sure Cash gets the justice he deserves. He deserves to see us all united, the strong, loving family that we are. Thank you for all of your support and care, and thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to get my voice heard.
It seems that both Monica and Trevor have a history of drug use, drug possession, and run-ins with the law. Crime Online has reported that Trevor is wanted on a number of charges, including 2 counts of an unauthorized use of a vehicle, fraud, 2 counts of drug possession, and theft by check. In 2018, Trevor spent 68 days in county lockup after he was arrested by Harris County Sheriff's deputies for assaulting his father, Roger Gernon, after they'd gotten into an argument over a credit card bill. Apparently, Roger said he was going to call the police, and Trevor grabbed the phone from him, drawing blood on his father's arm with his fingernails. Trevor was then charged with misdemeanor assault and interference with an emergency telephone call. Trevor was also charged with possession of methamphetamine in 2016, and most recently he was charged with possession of narcotics in 2020, which was the charge that he'd been ordered to go to rehab for, but instead he ran. Monica did call him a coward, but she also said that Trevor was a good father, for the most part, and that this was a mishap for him. An acquaintance of Trevor's, Neil Flanagan, who'd gone to high school with him, he had some things to say about Trevor as well. He said, he had given him a job. He owns a corrosion-proofing business, and he gave Trevor a job there. And then I guess one day Trevor just stopped showing up, and then he messaged him on Facebook a couple years after and was like, hey, what's going on? Like nothing happened, like he didn't just leave him high and dry and disappear without a word. Neil said that when Trevor was sober, he was as good as you could ask for. But Neil's father, Johnny Flanagan, thinks Trevor's behavior is a pretty accurate reflection of his character, saying, quote, he's one of these guys that kind of goes whichever way the wind blows, and he'll do good for several months and then do bad for several months and, just up and disappear, end quote. Monica Sherrod also has a rocky past. We've got a DWI, we've got identity fraud charges, driving without a license, misdemeanor theft, methamphetamine possession, and in 2013, she pled guilty to attacking her own mother, Leslie Pinkerton. According to the arrest affidavit, Monica intentionally struck her mother in the head and chest with her hand and pulled her to the ground, causing bodily injury to her by then stomping on her mother's toes with her feet. Leslie Pinkerton told the responding police officer that she believed her toes were broken, and Monica was sentenced to 2 years of community supervision, participation in a domestic violence treatment program, a $100 donation to a family violence center, and a $200 fine. Now let's hear from Monica now, because she's got a lot to say, starting with Cash and Carter's biological mother, Melinda Seagroves, who lives in Houston. And after Cash's death, it's been reported that Carter, Cash's twin brother, was returned to Melinda. But it's also kind of up in the air. We don't know exactly what happened because the official statement was that Carter had been reunited with Melinda, but we don't know whose care or custody Carter's actually in. Now, Melinda and her mother and her sister, they haven't spoken much to the media, but they did say that they've been searching for Cash and Carter frantically for quite a while, which Monica disputes, saying, quote, she wasn't. Last Christmas, we begged her to even FaceTime the boys, and she wouldn't. She's a trucker. She hasn't properly seen the boys for 2 years. Trevor has custody of them. Now, all of a sudden, it's reported she and her mother were looking for them, and they missed them because Cash passed away. It is also reported that Carter is now back with her, which I don't believe is true. I think he's in the custody of Child Services, end quote. So like I already said, this is he said, she said, and Cash gets lost in the shuffle of pointing fingers and virtue signaling. I was the better parent. I was the better parent. I did more for him. I loved him more. Monica went on to say, quote, if you showed them a picture of her, they didn't know who she was. They called me mommy. If someone said, is Monica there? They would say, no. I would be like, that's me. I'm Monica. They'd say, no, you're not. You're mommy. I felt they needed a mom. They needed stability, end quote. Monica has also claimed that Melinda Seagroves has banned her from Cash's funeral, and she doesn't know why, because Monica says, I've been the one who's been taking care of these boys, not Melinda. Melinda wasn't the one there for them. I was. Monica said she loves both boys as if they were her very own, and she described Cash as a very happy child. She said he was always eager to learn, and every day they would sit at the kitchen table and go through his ABCs because he was just hungry for knowledge. And when she first got the boys in her house, she said they didn't know anything, not even their colors. They couldn't tell her what letters were by sight. Monica said that Cash loved books and wanted to learn to read so badly. She said, quote, he would always say, what's that say and what's that say? He wanted me to read the same book over and over again, end quote. And this is exactly what kids do when they want to learn to read. They make you read the same book over and over again, so it's repetitive, so they can kind of look at the sentences and put them together with the words that you're saying. Monica said that out of the two boys, Cash and Carter, Cash was the leader. He was the one who showed Carter how to do everything, and he was the one who was brave enough to follow through with everything. So it does seem as if she knew these two boys, but I do want to keep in mind that she only raised Cash and Carter for roughly 3 months. And it's so hard to tell what the truth is when everyone has a different version of it. Monica Sherrod has been accused by the Seagroves family of using Cash's death for monetary gain. Melinda's sister, Patty Seagroves, she said that they had no idea Cash and Carter had been living with Monica, and she went on to say, quote, the woman has also falsely claimed to be Cash's mother and has tried to gain financially from his death, end quote. Patty Seagroves has started her own GoFundMe, which at the time of recording this video has reached over $12,000, and she urged the public to not donate to any GoFundMe pages associated with Monica Sherrod. I believe the GoFundMe that is started by the Seagroves family, it's to raise money to bring Cash's body from Dallas to Houston and bury him. Monica Sherrod, her two oldest sons, and her parents, they visited the place that Cash was found a few days after his death. They left a large toy dinosaur at a shrine that had already been created there. She said the dinosaur was his favorite toy, and Cash used to put all his little cars around the dinosaur and then tell her that he'd made a monster truck. Monica also said that she's been getting a lot of hate online. People are blaming her for Cash's death and speculating a lot. And she wants everyone to know that she isn't a monster. Her kids are her life. So personally, I think there's something sketchy about the whole thing. But I do want to remind everyone that we should not be harassing people online, ever, right? Monica may trigger our true crime spidey senses. I definitely think she triggers mine. But she is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And there's a chance that it all went down exactly as she said. So no matter how convinced you are that she's done something wrong here or she just seems off to you, if we continue this cycle of hate, it doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help Cash or Carter. We really need to reserve judgment on these things until we get more information. And I mean, we can talk here. We can speculate. I can say to you, it seems sketchy. You can say to me in the comments, yeah, it definitely seems sketchy. Something about this doesn't make sense. But to go and, find her, seek her out, and accuse her of murdering Cash, accuse her of, setting up Darren Brown to murder Cash, accusing her of just being a bad person in general, is just unproductive. It doesn't do anything besides make the person who's lodging these complaints or lodging these accusations feel better very temporarily. So like I said, spidey sense is tingling, because here's the thing. Initially, Monica told the media that she and her family had no connection to Cash's abductor, Darren Brown. Early on in this case, a local station, WFAA, talked to both Monica and her 18-year-old son, Cameron. And it's right there in black and white on their website. It says, quote, she told the outlet that there was no relationship between Brown and the child, and she had no idea why Brown would allegedly take the boy, end quote. But as it turns out, that was not exactly the truth. 18-year-old Cameron Morey, Monica's son, he said that he considered Cash his little brother. He said Cash loved everybody, had the biggest smile ever, and loved to play superheroes with Cameron.
Cameron Morey stopped by to drop off flowers.
The sweetest little boy. He loved everybody. The biggest smile ever.
Morey lived in the same home as the 4-year-old. He says he woke up and the child was missing.
I got up, I'm talking about in my shorts, no socks, no shoes, no shirt, running around the neighborhood looking for him. And I run down over there.
Morey's mother had been taking care of the child. Police say his biological father dropped him off at their home back in March, and she lost contact with him.
She can't stop crying. She's been crying for it ever since. She don't know what to do. She thinks it's her fault. I tell her it's not. There's no reason for this. Like, what he did was wrong.
Brown, who also lives in the same neighborhood, was out on bond for an unrelated charge at the time of the murder. Fox 4 spoke to one of his family members off camera. They claim he suffers from mental health problems. It's still unclear if Brown knew the boy. Maury says he recognizes Brown from school but has no idea why this would happen.
It's a 4-year-old kid, bro. Like, for what?
At the house where Dallas police say 4-year-old Cash Gernon was kidnapped, Cameron Maury, who lives here, says he's as hurt as he is confused.
Like, why? He was 4, you know? Like, who does this to 4-year-old kids? You know what I'm saying? For what? Just for no reason? Just because you want to be evil?
Until Saturday morning, when Maury's mother claims this man, Darian Brown, kidnapped Cash.
Because we got cameras all over the place in my house. It shows him coming in, took him while he was asleep. While he's asleep. Carried him out of my house while he's asleep. If I could right now, I'd switch my place for his.
You saying that he randomly...
Random, yes, random out of nowhere, for no reason. There's no reason for none of this. There's no, like, it's not from revenge, not from hate, not from none of that. Not to get back at us, nothing. He loved to play superheroes. He always thought he was Iron Man.
So Cameron says in this interview that he recognized Darren Brown from high school. They both attended Duncanville High School in the Fort Worth area, and that's the extent of it. Both Monica and Cameron, they say random, like this is random. I think Cameron says something like, definitely don't think this was payback or revenge or hate. I don't know why this happened. Cameron never says that he knew Brown. He doesn't say that they were friends, that they would see each other. But Monica was the one who identified Darren Brown from the surveillance footage. She said she knew him, she knew what he looked like, and she knew that he lived a few blocks away. But both Monica and Cameron kind of gave everyone the impression, like I said, that this was completely random. They had no idea why Darren Brown would do this. In the last few days, a bunch of new updates have come out, including Monica now admitting to the media that Darren had been in her home just 2 days before Cash was murdered. Monica said at the time that he'd gotten there to the house, she was out grocery shopping, so she didn't know he was there. And when she got home and she found Darren Brown in her house, quote, spending time with Cash, she said she was annoyed by this, and she told Brown to leave and not to come back because she didn't want him around her kids. And then she reprimanded her son, Cameron, and daughter, Emily, for letting him in without permission. Monica said, quote, he was only here for a short time. Emily said he creeped her out, end quote. What's never explained is why Monica would see Darren Brown in her house and immediately go so hard. You know, like, you leave my house, don't come back. I don't want you around my kids. What does Monica know about Darren Brown that she isn't saying? Because why would you come home to find like an 18-year-old kid in your house who's a classmate of your son's and then just go from 0 to 100 and be like, get out of here, don't come back, I don't want you around my kids? Why would she say that? What prior experience does she have with Darren Brown which would cause her to have that reaction when she sees him in her house? What happened while Darren Brown was in the house that creeped Monica's daughter out? What part of the story are we not being told? That's what I'm curious about. And I went through a ton of articles, and a lot of these articles are like, oh, the motive hasn't been revealed yet. Like, we don't know what Darren Brown's motive would have been. And we also don't know what the connection between the family is. Some articles reported there was no connection, depending on how early they came out, because early on, the media was talking to Monica and her family, and they were saying there's no connection. But then after a few days, Monica and her family were suddenly like, oh, yeah, you know, like, there is a connection. And I forget which website it was, but another story, they said that the family of Cameron Maury, who's Monica's son, later identified Darren Brown as Cameron's friend. Yet once again, both Cameron and Monica said this was completely random. They don't know why he would do this. They don't really have like a relationship with him. Let's talk about Darren Brown, the perpetrator, allegedly. Many of his neighbors have come forward, claiming to have reported him to the police multiple times. Apparently, Darren had a bad habit of wandering around his neighborhood at night, breaking property and security cameras with a hammer. And I have pictures of him, like, winding up with his hammer to break a camera. He'd also threatened many of his neighbors, telling them he was going to come back when they were sleeping and kill their families. I'm going to play you a little clip from that YouTube channel I was talking about earlier, Stop the Madness. He got some messages, I believe on Facebook, about Darren, and I'm going to let him tell you about what those messages said, because these messages are apparently from neighbors of Darren Brown.
They said this guy has been terrorizing our neighborhood for weeks, and no one took his threat seriously. No one took his threat seriously. He kept breaking cameras and property with a hammer. He started threatening families that he was coming at night to kill them. We all had videos and pictures of him doing these acts. We voiced our concerns, and it wasn't taken seriously. Madness. So apparently, he is well known in this area, even so much they got pictures of him on the doorbells breaking the cameras. It says Darian Brown had been tormenting us for weeks. He would carry a hammer, go around at night breaking cameras and windows and breaking into houses. We all made sure our concerns was known, since he would commit crimes in the division city of Dallas and Duncanville. Each police department had different ways of handling it. Regardless, none of them ever increased patrolling or ever did something to stop this guy. He had clearly told multiple people he was coming back to kill their families at night with the hammer. Madness. He also wasn't hard to find. He would spend his time in our local basketball court. We were so scared to even go into our houses. My mother would have to pick me up as soon as my husband left to work, and we would come back after he got out of work around 10 p.m. We unblocked our kids inside the truck, and we will run from our truck to the house altogether. We were afraid he would be hiding in the bushes and hit us with the hammer while we were unbuckling our kids. All of us knew he was going to kill someone eventually. An innocent 4-year-old had to be killed for his threats to be taken seriously. Madness. We had one person who said, I am disappointed that this kid has roamed our neighborhood wreaking havoc for a month, and every time police were called, it was stressed that someone was going to get hurt. I need to speak to someone regarding my disappointment on the efforts put out to keep this from happening and to link him to the crimes that led up to this. One could even say it was premeditated by his comments to me and my wife about coming in the middle of the night and killing my family. It says the picture of the youngster that has been terrorizing people in the neighborhood is the same person who broke into my home while I was present and tried to kidnap my granddaughter and assaulted me. Madness. In February of 2021. He came from the same address near my home. The police response was sadly very late, but I survived it. Councilman Thomas was made aware of it as well as the Southwest Substation Commander Weddington, who has not called me back yet. The home invasion has left me bewildered about Dallas police and very disappointed about the adults and occupants of the house where the suspect came from. The police officers totally mishandled the call during my assault, kidnapping, and had called 911 several times. During the assault and was put on hold several times. It was only the grace of God that no one was killed and that my grandmother, disabled sister-in-law, myself survived the ordeal. Okay, I seen the suspect and his mother at the Walmart several weeks later, and he/mother apologized for his actions and thanked me for not killing him. I forgave him. I reported this information to the police.
Local news outlet WFAA reported that on Monday, May 24th, neighbors of Cash Gernon gathered with city leaders at the Park in the Woods Recreation Center and begged for a better police presence in their far southwest Dallas neighborhood. Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia addressed those gathered, saying, quote, "When I got this call, I was angry as an officer and I was angry as a father," end quote. But he also went on to say that, he'd only been on the job 4 months. So he's only in this position for 4 months. And when he drove from Dallas PD headquarters to the area where Cash lived, he was stunned at how far away it really was, which many neighbors pointed out as problematic. Like, this is the reason we're upset, because when it comes to police response time, it's awful. So I think there's a disconnect here with Dallas PD. They don't realize, or maybe they do, how non-existent their presence is in some of these further out, like suburban neighborhoods. But those neighborhoods need police activity too. Those neighborhoods need people patrolling. Those neighborhoods need to know that if they call 911 because someone's attacking them or somebody broke in their house and tried to like kill their granddaughter or kidnap their granddaughter, they need to know that if they call 911, the police are going to be there and help out. Some people at this meeting, they had pictures and videos of Darren breaking their doorbell cameras, wriggling door handles of cars in the driveway to see if they were unlocked, just kind of creeping around, being sketchy. There was also more surveillance video released from a man who lives next door to Monica Sherrod, and this footage showed a young man who presumably is Darren Brown, he looks like him, he's wearing the same backpack, lurking near the home of Cash Gernon 10 weeks before the little boy was killed. Now, this neighbor, his name's Jose Alvarado, he started going through his own security camera footage on his property after Brown's arrest, and he found this clip, and he was like, this is terrifying, right? So in the security footage, you can see that Darren Brown opens the gate into Alvarado's yard, and he peers in before quickly walking away, which Lewis was really scared about because he has two kids who often play basketball in that backyard. And like, he had no idea that this was happening. And this is the same person now, allegedly, who kidnapped a 4-year-old boy and stabbed him to death and possibly sexually assaulted him, if we can believe the statement of Monica's father. At the time of Brown's arrest in Cash's abduction, he was already facing a misdemeanor charge for evading arrest on April 27th, 2021. It was also reported in a lot of places that Brown was wearing an ankle monitor when he entered Cash's bedroom and took him out, but that has since been found out to be inaccurate information, what some might call misinformation. Like, you should probably check your sources and make sure something like that's accurate, because if he was wearing an ankle monitor when he went into Cash's house, this would be very easy to prove that it was him. I don't think the police would really need to worry that much about forensics, because those ankle monitors transmit information about location and stuff back to the police. So it would be easy to prove that he was in the house that morning. The Dallas Morning News reported that Darren Brown lived with his parents, who supported him financially, and a woman who's identified herself as Darren's mother, Mimi Brown. She spoke to a reporter over the phone and said that her son is a patient at Metro Care Services, and this is a place that provides mental health care to children and adults. She also said that she believes he's been framed and didn't do this. She said Darren was home all weekend. She said Darren's very kind and helps take care of his younger cousins at home. And she knows that he's traumatized and scared right now because she's scared and traumatized right now. And she's worried that, with his fragile mental health, like, all the stuff that's happening right now isn't going to be good for him. Mimi Brown told crimeonline.com, quote, "I think that 4-year-old boy was killed at them people's home, and I believe someone had transportation like a car or truck and transported his body to the body site," end quote. So here come the wild speculations, right? Like, I completely respect Mimi Brown's need or passion to defend her son, especially if he has mental health issues, because, I know that parents who have children who have mental health issues or developmental disabilities, they are very much like savage. They're mama bears. They need to protect their kids from this world that, treats these children a little bit differently. So I understand her need to do that. I don't understand her need to start throwing out like speculations and accusations about Monica Sherrod. Not that I'm saying Monica Sherrod is innocent. I'm saying we don't know. So seeing something like that publicly, it's going to add fuel to this fire, to an already really, really, really bad situation. And of course, now there's going to be a bunch of speculation going on online, as is often the case when things don't add up. I was honestly surprised, though, to see how many people believe that Darren Brown was framed. So there have been accusations that Monica Sherrod either paid or convinced Darren to do this to Cash. Maybe she was sick of taking care of 2 small children who weren't even hers. She wanted them gone. I have a 4-year-old daughter. She's a handful. She's the Energizer Bunny. She never stops. I can't imagine having 2 of them running around. So I guess that's a, plausible theory, but it's just that, a theory, right? There's also allegations that when we see this man on the surveillance video from Cash's bedroom taking him out of the bed, it isn't even Darren Brown, But Monica's son, Cameron Morey, they do sort of resemble each other, maybe similar hair, similar like body types. I don't know. I think that it is Darren. Comparing Darren in that surveillance video to Darren in the surveillance video from Lewis's house, the next door neighbor, comparing him to the surveillance videos and pictures from his neighborhood of all the people's homes that he had like damaged with his hammer. It looks like him. He's wearing the same backpack. He walks the same. But there was a fake Facebook post going around for a while. It even made it to Reddit. And this Facebook post, it looks like it was created by somebody who was pretending to be Dallas law enforcement. But you really only have to read like one sentence before you figure out that it's a fake. I took a screenshot of it on my phone, so I'm going to read it to you. So it says, Dallas Police Department, Albert Martinez. Quote, there has been an arrest in the death of a 4-year-old recently found dead in the street, and the investigation is ongoing. This suspect, who has a history of mental health and drug use-related issues, is not been charged with murder and only has a preliminary child kidnapping charge at this time. No cause of death has been determined. If the medical examiner concludes there was foul play or a child molestation, we will add additional charges after those forensic results. However, it has come to our attention that the mother of the child has been giving a completely fabricated version of events to the media and a local news outlet recently. The mom, who we will only refer to as Monica at this time, claimed that her son was randomly kidnapped in the middle of the night after the suspect broke into her house, and she claimed she saw home surveillance that proved that story, but this is not accurate, and the mom never once called police making that accusation and didn't file any missing persons reports. For 2 whole days, the mom stayed silent and never once called the police or reported him as missing, so that's why no Amber Alert was sent out. Most parents would immediately call the police if a stranger broke into their home and kidnapped their child, but this mother did not. The mom and the suspect did indeed have a relationship, and according to neighbors, he was there all the time and also had been living in the house with the family on and off. At this point, we do not yet know what the mother and suspect were involved with. The mom is not a credible person and has a lengthy criminal history herself and has prior Facebook posts with doctored photos referring to herself as the proud gang leader and armed robber. Prior to this incident, the 4-year-old victim's twin brother was taken away by Child Protective Services and is in state custody. According to tips and interviews we have gotten from neighbors, the mom was often doing or strung out on drugs, and she was letting the suspect molest the child in exchange for illegal narcotics and room and board. Based on our preliminary findings, the most likely scenario at this point is that the suspect conspired to kill a child after, out of fear, CPS would find out about the abuse and have them criminally charged. But the plan went wrong because the suspect couldn't control himself and molested the child prior to the killing in the woods. The mom might have been in on it, but right now we don't have enough evidence to charge the mother as of yet. The FBI has secured a search warrant for the home, and we have been canvassing the area for evidence all weekend. Monica has informed authorities that she will no longer talk to us about her son's death without a lawyer present. I mean, really good creative writing, except for all the typos and misspelled words. Good creative writing. Like, I think this person should maybe write a true crime book, like a true crime fiction book about this. But it's clearly not from any legitimate law enforcement entity. It doesn't even sound like a public statement that the police would give. The police don't make public statements about gossip and what neighbors are saying and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if somebody did this because they thought it would be funny or if they were just trying to like make Monica look guilty and hope that it would just go viral and get out there. But this is so dumb. Now, I will say this. There have been other people online now talking about the fact that Monica and Darren were in a relationship. But I wonder if they're getting that from this fake post and kind of just running with it, because I don't see it really anywhere else besides in comment sections and stuff like that. So there's no evidence of that. And is that me saying that it's not possible? Of course it's possible. But is it provable? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Possible? Anything's possible. Not everything's provable. But like I said, I do have to admit, it all seems super, super sketchy to me. When you look at Monica's interview with the Daily Mail, it's a little unsettling because she does seem genuinely upset. But then you look around her and you kind of wonder, like, how are these kids living in that house? The place is kind of trashed. It's messy. It looks very run down, like no one's putting any effort into, upkeeping it or cleaning it. There's marks all over the walls in Cash and Carter's bedroom. It looks like dirt, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's on the walls. There's sheets hanging on the windows from the inside. So inside the room, there's sheets hanging on the windows instead of like curtains or blinds. And from the outside of the house, you can see just like a bunch of broken blinds on the window. And I usually don't judge what people do in their own homes or how they live. You know, that's up to you. I'm a real live and let live type of person. However, when the welfare of a child's involved, you really do have to ask yourself, were they being cared for well in this home when it doesn't even look like the home has been cared for? That is not, however, proof that Monica or her family were involved or complicit in what happened to Cash. It's just an observation and also a statement from me that before I make decisions one way or the other, I'm going to wait for more information to come out because I think it will, right? If Monica and Darren Brown were working together, or Darren Brown and Cameron Morey were working together, or Darren Brown was working with anyone, he's going to tell the police, and that's going to be looked into. And even if Monica's erased everything on her phone about that, Darren will still have stuff on his phone maybe, or they can use a Celebrate and get all the stuff that's been deleted off of it. It'll be found out. And I do think it was Darren Brown in that room. You can see he's wearing the same backpack he can be seen wearing in the neighbors' pictures and the videos of him with a hammer smashing people's Ring doorbells. So that's a big reason of why I'm not going to just jump right on this, conspiracy theory that Darren wasn't the one in the bedroom. Because if you look at his past behavior, if you look at his past actions, it's kind of consistent with that. Whether he made the decision to take this little boy's life on his own, or he was talked into it, or paid to do it, or manipulated to do it, I can't be sure. But it's pretty clear to me that Darren Brown could have potentially been struggling with some serious mental health issues. He did have a pattern of doing things that would be seen as unstable and violent behaviors. I think the fact that Monica and Cameron initially seemed confused as to why Darren would have done this and sort of made it seem as if they just knew him in passing, and then it comes out that Darren was actually at their house interacting with Cash just 2 days prior, that's sketchy. That's suspicious AF, in my opinion. But it doesn't change the fact that, Darren was seen on the surveillance camera doing this, allegedly. Now, there's people out there who've, taken the surveillance footage, and they claim that this is definitely Cameron pretending to be Darren. I don't know, guys. It seems a little far-fetched, but, nothing would surprise me. Another thing that did look suspicious to me is how long it took for Monica to call police. So she didn't call police until almost 11 a.m. Now, for me, personally, I know that my own 4-year-old, she gets me up at about 7:30 every morning. So I'm used to getting up at that time. If I sleep past 7:30, I'll wake up pretty quickly and be like, oh, what's going on? I'll wake up thinking something's wrong because she didn't wake me up at 7:30. It's 7:45. What's going on? She's that, like clockwork. And usually it's just the fact that she was very tired the day before, so she ended up sleeping later than normal. Monica slept until I think 10. She said she woke up and she was like, what's going on? The kids usually have me up by now. So I guess that makes sense. If everybody in the house was sleeping and nobody heard Cash get taken, how would they know that something had happened at 5 o'clock in the morning? They wouldn't. And then if the kids aren't waking them up, then how are they going to get up? But didn't Carter wake them up? I have to double check and make sure, and if anybody knows, let me know, but it looked like in the video, the surveillance video, it looked like Darren Brown came back in to take Carter around 7:30. Something spooked him. He ran out, and then it looks like Carter wakes up shortly after. Maybe he heard somebody in the room and he woke up because it was already getting to be morning. And if he was up at 7:45, 8 o'clock, even 8:30, wouldn't he have woken Monica up? Wouldn't he have woken somebody in the house up? Is he just one of those 4-year-olds that, sleeps really late? Or is he just one of those 4-year-olds that will get up and nobody else is up and he just lets the adults sleep till they get up? I don't know. But according to Monica, she woke up late, realized Cash wasn't there. They panicked, running around looking for him, and that's when she called the police. And if all of that is 100% true, then I get it. I just don't understand why Carter didn't wake somebody up, I guess. We also did have the police going into both the homes, Darren Brown homes and Monica Sherrod's home. In Darren's home, they found a tissue in the bathroom with some blood on it. They also found a small pocket knife. And remember, they say that Cash was killed with a knife of some kind. And in Monica's house, I don't know what they found, but you can see the FBI went in and they were removing a bunch of things, electronics. They removed a big rug. So I'm sure that if there was a connection between Monica and Cameron, if there was some sort of relationship, if they were talking, it'll come out once they go through her electronics. If she's lying about anything, it'll come out. There's also security cameras in the house. I don't think it was just in that room, but once again, I'm not sure. But the original security camera footage would show us, what time Carter woke up, and then we would wonder, where did Carter go when he left the room? Did he wake anybody up? Did he wake up late? Did he wake up early? And he just never went and talked to anybody. We don't know, but that's it. We're going to see what else comes out in this case. I'm very curious to see if there is anything to these theories, because they're out there. They're off the wall, but it's not hard to believe anymore. Nothing's hard to believe anymore. So let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. Let me know if you have other information I didn't find or wasn't able to talk about. We are a true crime hive mind here, so I really appreciate the input that you guys give me. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to hit like if you like the video, share it if you think it's worth sharing, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and follow my podcast that I co-host every week with Derek Levasseur called Crime Weekly. New episodes go up every Friday, and the episodes will then go up on YouTube the following Wednesday. I'm really sad about this. And like I said, it's kind of less important to me who did it, like who was involved. Obviously, I want to know that stuff, but this child's dead. And he completely got lost in the shuffle of these adults acting like complete babies, acting like complete, like, juvenile delinquents, as far as I'm concerned. Either way, it doesn't look like the police are sort of just focusing on Darren Brown, like they're obviously going to fact check what Monica said. It also is a little, like, strange to me why Monica didn't call the police or call CPS or something when Trevor left his 2 sons with her and disappeared and she couldn't get a hold of him. I mean, I appreciate that you want to, take care of these kids. I appreciate even that you may have developed some sort of relationship with them, which makes you want to care for them until he gets back. But they have a biological mother and a biological father out there somewhere. And apparently this mother was looking for them, even though Monica says she wasn't. So you should have at least called the police and reported it and gone through the legal avenues to maybe foster these kids until Trevor got back. Because at that point, you're behaving above reproach, but you can't just take somebody's kids who aren't yours and keep them in your house and, like, raise them as your own. What were you going to do when they had to start school? Like, what were you going to do if they had to go to the doctor? What's the plan here? Who knows when Trevor would have been back, if he ever would have been back. So it's just strange that she didn't call and report it. Like, I would have done that just to cover my own ass so then nobody could come and say, like, I kidnapped their kids. I don't know. It's all very confusing, but let me know what you think about this in the comment section. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and discuss this case with you. Thank you so much for being here. Justice for Cash, no matter what it takes, no matter where it leads us. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly, and so you got to let it go. I got blood